The way someone dresses often gives us the first impression of who they are or what they like. Through the way we dress, we express to some degree an element of our personality, and by putting together an outfit we like, it helps us feel more confident and motivated. Ashley McIntyre is a Durham-based Instagram influencer, personal stylist, and plus-size model.
I started my personal styling business back in 2018 because I'd been kind of doing it for a while for friends, and it's something that I'd always kind of wanted to do. And it's been really neat. I had an Instagram to promote my styling business. So what I started doing was just photographing myself and what I was wearing every day. But honestly, for me, I get dressed every day because it's so easy to slide into sweatpants and everything. Get dressed so I don't fall back asleep.
Ultimately, our clothing and sense of style goes beyond its obvious purpose of simply clothing ourselves. It is something that we use to feel good, comfortable, and motivated, helping us to foster a sense of identity. However, most of the places that many of us mindlessly are shopping at are contributing to an environmental and humanitarian crisis. According to the EPA, in 2018, U.S. landfills received 11.3 million tons of textiles. 1 ton is equivalent to 2,000 pounds, so that is nearly 22.6 billion pounds of textiles going into our landfills nationwide every year. And every year, this number is steadily increasing. But how exactly did we become so wasteful, and why are we getting rid of so much clothing? Well, much of this waste can be attributed to fast fashion. Fast fashion is clothing that is produced at an extremely fast rate to constantly display the newest styles to customers at a low price point. This high turnover comes at the cost of our environment and low-wage workers, all to provide us with cheap, trendy clothing. I discussed this issue with expert Beth Stewart.
Well, I am the executive director of Redress Raleigh, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit focused on advocating for a more sustainable fashion and textiles industry. I have been doing Redress Raleigh for over a decade now. So in addition to that experience, I also have a master's degree in textiles from NC State University. My thoughts on fast fashion are that it's terrible, but it's also dangerous. I have worked for a fast fashion brand. I was a key holder at an Old Navy, and I was already invested in Redress Raleigh at the time, but I learned infinitely more about the problems within the industry by that experience, because at the time, a lot more of my knowledge was academic and more focused on supply chain, and this was just showing how that trickles down to the people working in the store, the customers. It's everywhere, and the waste in the stores too. So fast fashion is terrible. It is hands down the worst thing that you can buy. That being said, it is dangerous because the marketing is very slick, and it's cheap. I mean, we have become accustomed to constant sales, things being cheap, and there's a very big disconnect between the cheapness of clothing and what that really means, and how that fits in our budget for the year. A long time ago, people used to save up to buy clothing, but now it's just not a thing anymore. People don't think about it as much. So I would say those are my two biggest things: is that it's terrible and it's very dangerous.
It has grown so exponentially throughout, even just these past 5 years. I think it has really just shot up, just these trends that are, cycling through so fast. And I think that fashion on its own can be such a good thing, and, it's expressive and all this stuff, but fast fashion is something that we need to limit a lot because it is very environmentally taxing, beginning to end, from the harvesting of the materials, all the way until where the clothes get donated. It's just very interesting to see that process and to see, where it goes and how much we don't see behind the scenes when we purchase these things.
To further understand what others knew or thought about fast fashion, I conducted a survey on my business account on my Instagram that I use for my Etsy, which has a wide reach to mostly female, teen to college-age students around the U.S. Most of the answers highlighted a good general understanding of both the environmental effects and often poor working conditions and cheap labor caused by fast fashion retailers. A greater awareness of the topic can be greatly attributed to the internet, especially social media. With more awareness also comes a number of proposed solutions for which us consumers are expected to try to abide by. A common solution that is often perpetuated on social media is being fast fashion free or quitting/boycotting fast fashion, as if it is that simple. Other common simple solutions include buying secondhand online or at thrift stores or from high-end sustainable clothing brands. But these simple solutions are often highly insensitive of underlying complexities. Factors like privilege, accessibility, a lack of inclusive sizing, and other circumstances create a difficult barrier to these solutions, a barrier that forces a substantial number of people to rely on fast fashion. The problem of overly simplified solutions has stemmed from the fact that the sustainable movement has long lacked much diversity. Popular activists or influencers often have a greater level of privilege and accessibility to sustainable options, and the lack of diverse perspectives has created a culture online that puts a large amount of shame and even blame on poor working class individuals who often can't afford sustainable alternatives. Our approach and awareness surrounding fast fashion needs to change. We need to create a more inclusive, diverse, and open-minded space that acknowledges that being able to quit fast fashion oftentimes is a privilege.
I do think that right now, most of the ability to buy sustainable fashion is a privilege. It is inevitably going to be higher priced and not as easy to find. And money and time are usually the two things that you have the least amount of when you have less privilege. So it is definitely a privilege to be able to invest in it and buy it.
Inclusivity, I think the more money that you have, like the more access that you have to like higher end brands, more like expensive or sustainable clothing. Like because if they're really sustainable, they can go up to like really high expensive prices. So stores like H&M or Forever 21 or like those department stores, they're really easy for like, especially I feel like our age to shop at because they're so trendy and cheap at the same time, and they have like a huge selection of clothing.
Another obstacle faced, particularly by people who are plus-sized or have specific dressing restrictions, is a lack of accessibility and inclusivity in many sustainable alternatives or clothing brands.
Because like sustainable fashion also definitely has a size inclusivity problem. Because there are very, very few brands that will go past an XL, which often translate to about a US size 10 or 12, which the average American woman is a size 16, 18. And so there's a huge market they're not serving because there's this idea that like people over a certain size don't want to invest in quality of clothes and they don't want to pay for clothes. And no, fat people absolutely want to pay for clothes. Fat people absolutely want to keep things for 3, 5, 7 years.
Apart from the lack of size inclusivity in many ethical clothing brands, even the solution of shopping at thrift stores is incredibly difficult for those who are plus-sized. Many plus-size creators have expressed this struggle online, like TikToker Isabella Din.
So this is like the 4th or 5th comment I've received on just this specific video alone regarding fast fashion, so I wanted to open up a conversation about it. My personal issue is I would love to thrift shop for my clothes and get things secondhand. However, where I live, there is like no plus size options, and whatever options there are tend to be bought by thinner women who want to make them into dresses or crop top sets with skirts. So my options are not there. So my only way of getting clothing is to order them online, and I cannot afford to pay $50 for a shirt.
A number of people in the comments of Isabella's video responded in agreement. A top comment with over 400 likes reading, quote, "A lot of people don't realize how hard it is to be ethical with plus-size clothing," end quote. Another plus-sized fashion influencer and YouTuber, Sincerely Tahiri, also voiced her experience and struggle of trying to shop sustainably.
Another thing that really frustrates me about this conversation is when they say, oh, go to thrift shops. Now, y'all know I love thrifting. I did a whole Thrift For Me video, which will be somewhere up here or down below. I absolutely love thrifting. I think that thrifting is such a vital tool for somebody like me who is broke, but also wanting to be environmentally friendly. However, I live in New York City, which is a fashion capital of the world. it's a lot easier for me to go thrifting than for somebody else. And even going to the thrift shop, y'all literally saw, if you watch my Thrift With Me video, it took me and 2 of my friends searching throughout 3 different thrift stores to find jeans that would fit me. And I am not the biggest person in the world. Okay.
Therefore, when suggesting and sharing with others solutions to fast fashion, we need to be mindful of the number of barriers caused by the lack of inclusivity or accessibility that exists between different communities and ethical alternatives.
This jacket, oh, it's beautiful. I even started yet, like I legit just went down like 2 aisles and I already have my cart like half full.
Get ready, I got so much stuff. Okay, I didn't try on anything, so I don't even know. Some of the stuff I might not even like and I might sell it.
We are back at it again in the thrift. So yeah, let's go thrift shopping.
With a greater awareness surrounding fast fashion, thrifting has been highly popularized as a more sustainable option. There are thousands of thrift haul videos of people showing off a number of unique pieces and finds to their audience. But as much as I do love watching these videos, thrifting copious amounts of clothing, some of which may not go to use or will be resold, can be potentially problematic.
The thing that I like to tell people is to like know what you actually like. It goes back to the personal style piece. Like knowing what you actually like is going to help you navigate that thrift store environment, because like everything is at a low price point. And so it can feel really easy and comforting to take so much with you. But again, if you're not going to actually use it and wear it, you're not doing a whole lot of good. Because like the idea of like, we see this a lot on social media too, like the idea of like a thrift haul. I'm like, no, this is like antithetical to like what we actually need to be doing. You know what? Like a thrift haul, like it's actually not super helpful if you're just like buying a bunch of things just because they're cheap. If you're actually going to use them, like have at it. It's that thoughtfulness piece again.
Additionally, in specific areas, thrift shopping has had similar effects of gentrification, which is the process of poor areas being changed by the moving in of wealthier individuals. This often can come at the cost of local working class people who may heavily rely on thrift stores for resources. As the popularity of thrifting has increased, so have the prices. As seen on Goodwill valuation guides, many of the prices from 2020 are nearly 3 times the base price in 2010. For example, shirts and blouses, which were priced at $4 in 2010, can now be sold at $12. This is not the cause of inflation either, as inflation would have only increased the price to around $5 at most. Some of the blame for such jumps in pricing has been set on sellers on popular reselling apps, who have been largely criticized for buying bulk amounts from thrift stores and marking them up significantly. The main takeaway is to be conscious and mindful of where you are thrifting, especially in low-income or rural neighborhoods. Additionally, try to avoid buying high-need items that may be low in stock, such as plus-size, professional, or kid clothing, as well as winter jackets. But generally, in suburban areas, scarcity isn't usually a problem. Actually, many thrift stores have a problem of having too many donations.
There was a great event with Scrap Exchange out in Durham, and their thrift store in particular was talking about just like these huge containers full of clothing that's donated and how they have to sort through it and how a lot of it isn't necessarily resellable. So I would say the negatives for thrift stores are a lot behind the scenes. With if you start with a low quality product like fast fashion, by the time you're donating it, often it's not necessarily something they can sell.
So, although thrifting is important in giving many disregarded pieces a second life, it still remains important to be a conscious shopper. Overall, there are many unforeseen factors that contribute to whether people can attain sustainable clothing options or not. We need to approach the issue of fast fashion with a better understanding of how inclusivity, privilege, and accessibility actively intersect with it. This extends to the practice of such solutions, like thrifting, and their many underlying complexities. Specifically for thrifting, as a consumer, always try to be mindful of what and how much you're buying, and most importantly, be conscious of the surrounding community that the specific store serves. So, I hope my documentary was informative in showing how such a nuanced and open-minded approach in our awareness of fast fashion is crucial in initiating true and all-inclusive change. you.